what exactly is solid waste? Solid waste is essentially any useless or unwanted products in a solid state derived from human activities and discarded by society. There are many different ways that someone could dispose of this waste. However, some methods are legal and some are illegal and more harmful to the environment. Some legal methods of waste disposal include anaerobic digestion, curbside collection, biodegradation, composting, incineration in some cases, and landfills are just some examples. While there are an abundance of legal ways of disposing of waste, some individuals or companies may turn to illegal ways of disposing of waste because they are cheaper or easier to manage. These may include unlicensed dumping, excessive dumping into waterways, and littering. Up next, we got Haley with things to know.
Hi, welcome to Things to Know. Our topics for today are the effects of solid waste disposal and how electronic waste is handled. First, the problems of our waste methods. Incineration causes issues in our atmosphere. Burning plastics and other materials creates emissions that contain toxins like mercury, dioxins, and furans. And just like burning fossil fuels, burning waste also produces carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide emissions that contribute to climate change. Incineration doesn't just make the waste disappear either. Fly ash and pollutants get released into the atmosphere, but toxic bottom ash is also left over, which usually has to end up in landfills. And speaking of landfills, they also cause all kinds of issues. Depending on the area, they can be thousands of acres big, and this can cause problems for densely populated areas since it leaves less room for housing. Not to mention the awful smell that so many people complain about when living close to a landfill. When garbage in big piles starts to rot, it releases methane, which is a greenhouse gas. In the atmosphere, methane contributes to global warming, yet another problem. And of course, most people know the dangers that garbage can have on ocean life. That's why the plastic straw rebellion started in the first place. But what a lot of people don't know is that there's a garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean larger than the United States, and it's full of plastic garbage. Imagine the damage that does to ocean life. A lot of people don't even realize the dangers of the things they throw away. Besides all the dangers to aquatic ecosystems, the toxins in a lot of waste can leach into the soil and water supply and become dangerous. According to Jag Zaks in his article, The Effects of Solid Waste Disposal, construction waste may contain asbestos, fossil fuel derivatives, and other toxic substances, and electronics can contain things like mercury, lead, chromium, and other metals that compromise environmental health, which goes into our next topic, how electronic waste is handled. The sad part about this is, even if people think they're taking their electronics to a recycling center, that may not be where they're actually recycled and reused as they might think. 80% of that material ends up being shipped to a country like China, Nigeria, India, Vietnam, or Pakistan. There, the labor of pulling apart and melting the pieces down is a lot cheaper than doing it inside the country. The problem with that, though, is that scraps and other hazardous material then litter that area. Electronic waste causes all kinds of toxins to be released, which can cause problems for both the environment and the people living in it. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time on Things to Know.
Hi, okay, so we're gonna go over recycling. So recycling is the idea that a good or material can be reused or repurposed for something else. At least for me, like the first thing I think of is when we put plastic bottles, cardboard, glass in like a separate container. But I've do some research about like what actually happened to that stuff. So when recyclables are picked up, they're taken to a material recovery facility, and that's where everything's separated and then sent to other facilities depending on what the material actually is. So metal and plastic are crushed into squares and are sold to metal processing plants who will melt it down and use it again. Paper and cardboard are packaged and shipped to paper mills where fibers are reused to make things like newspaper and office paper, which I was really surprised about. I was not aware that that was a thing. To reuse paper, and then glass is collected and brought to a glass treatment plant where it's washed and sorted by color, and then it's melted down to be used again for new like jars and bottles. So even though recycling sounds really great and all for it, but there are pros and cons to recycling. So some pros can be like it removes items from landfills, which reduces the amount of chemicals that are leaching into the ground, water, and the air, which is a big thing because we're really aware that our stuff is super polluted, as you can see from global warming and just like if you test water in general and just like the amount of stuff that's actually in it. This system also creates jobs. People are needed to sort through this stuff. People need to transport stuff, so that helps the economy overall. And then using recycled materials can decrease the amount of energy that's used to make a product, so you don't need as much energy because you already have some of the materials that you need, so you don't have to create anything new. But on the other side, recycling also, it takes energy. The machines need to be used. You need fuel to transport stuff, so it's kind of a give and take. Then electronic recycling, there is an issue with electronic recycling where it's usually sent overseas, where it's hand sorted and then it's actually been tested. In a lot of the places, chemicals are shown to be in the land and water, just due to they're not very regulated and so that's also a con, but I guess you can say that that's not necessarily a con against recycling, that's a con against the system. And then recycling costs money because you need space and land to store stuff. In the long run, I think it's going to pay off more than the cons are in the meantime. But I mean, right now everyone can just do their part by recycling and just trying to reduce the amount of stuff that's in landfills. So, thank you for my little talk.
Hello, so some may have the question of what can be recycled and what cannot. So I'm here to show you what can and can't be recycled. Essentially, what can be recycled is any sort of glass, cardboard, paper, plastic that really isn't contaminated. And what can't be recycled is pretty much contaminated stuff. So although cardboard can be recycled, you actually can't recycle a pizza box, even though most people do. The reason is because the grease from the pizza sinks into the cardboard, making it contaminated, thus contaminating the whole batch of recycling that may be put into. Here in Somerset County, they actually have recycling bins, and on top of them, they write what you can and can't recycle. Here there's two bins, one for paper and cardboard, and one for plastics and commingles, such as aluminum, metal, things like that. So on the newspaper and cardboard one, you can see all the different bullet points of what can be recycled into here. See here it says this pizza box is clean. So if the pizza box is not stained with grease, you can recycle it. But if it is, you cannot. Over here on the commingle bin, you can do glass, aluminum, plastic, all the typical things one would recycle, and it tells you all the different examples that you can recycle, as well as that you should clean them. So here you can see you can do yogurt balls, ranch dressing containers, those are plastic. You can recycle those as long as you clean them thoroughly. So if you can't put a full container or something and you need to clean it. The recycling bins actually are pretty large. They're equivalent to a big trash can, and they hold a lot of recycling in here. A lot. It's very useful. And to learn more, you can go on Somerset County's website. They have a recycling website. They tell you what you can and cannot, as well as the dates in which you can cycle. And overall, it's a very good program, and I really recommend it. Hi guys, I'm back again. I took a different change of scenery. So, other than recycling, you can actually compost. And what composting is, it's a method of treating solid waste organically. So, the organic material would be broken down by microorganisms as well as the presence of oxygen, to a point that it can be safely used and stored, and if you use it properly, you can apply back to the environment, use it as some sort of fertilizer or something, and it's actually a pretty eco-friendly method. So some pros of composting would be that if you apply it to soil and put it in the ground and stuff, it improves soil structure and water retention, so it'll make the soil much more rich and better for plants and such, as well as allow it to hold more water than rather getting dry out right away and getting dry and cracky. It'll actually hold the water and be better for your grass or other plant life. Composting is all natural and organic, so it can be used as a fertilizer. It's no like harmful chemicals that you would get from like the store or the fertilizer you would buy. It's just all natural, all organic, like completely clean and safe. It's relatively cheap because all you really need is something to compost in. But other than that, you don't really need to add much to it. You can just take all your old vegetables or organic matter or solid waste that you put into the compost bin, and it just naturally occurs on its own rather than having to go to the store and buy a bunch of stuff or like pay for more and more waste and recycling things. And what's good about it is anyone can do it. So I can compost, and if you don't need to have like a big house, big backyard to put a compost bin in the back. You can have a small one. They sell them at Target. They're like this big, and you can put it in like the corner of your kitchen sink. It's amazing. Anyone can do it. But some cons would be that it smells because you have things decomposing in there. It would probably smell bad. I don't compost, but I may try it. I'm just assuming it would smell. It would also, like, something may not look the prettiest. Like, depending on the compost bin you get, it looks like a giant, like, bulky thing. But, like, in the end, it'll probably be worth it, right? It's time consuming because nothing decomposes overnight. So if you put it in there, you're going to need to, like, wait a while for, like, to actually be able to use it as some sort of fertilizer. But, like, I think the time would pay off. It's not a perfect process, but I really think it'd be beneficial to our environment. So, yeah. See you guys soon. Thanks for coming.